The morning sun cast long shadows across the red dust of Kepler 442b. As Dr. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead, he'd been digging in this spot for 3 weeks now, and his team was getting restless. The other planets in this system had already given up their secrets, but this world kept hiding whatever lay beneath its surface. Jake looked at his scanner one more time. The readings were still there, buried deep under layers of ancient rock and soil. Something big was down. There, something that had been waiting for thousands of years. "Dr. Morrison, we found something," called Lisa Carter from across the dig site. She was the team's engineer, and her voice carried excitement that made Jake's heart race. He jogged over to where she stood next to a hole that was deeper than. A man was tall. Lisa pointed down into the darkness. "Look at this. The metal detector is going crazy, and my scanner says there's something huge down there. Really huge." Jake knelt at the edge of the hole and shined his flashlight into the depths. At first he saw only dirt and rocks, but then the light caught something that made him hold his breath. A smooth, dark surface reflected the beam back. At him, it was not natural stone or soil. It was definitely made by someone. "Veltar Crixon, come here," Jake called to the 2 alien members of his team. The tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian named Veltar approached first, his forearms moving gracefully as he walked. Behind him came Crixon, the squat, gray Andromedian, whose large eyes could see things humans missed. "What have you discovered, Dr. Morrison?" Veltar asked in his musical voice. His species had been exploring space for 10,000 years, much longer than humans, and his knowledge had been invaluable on this expedition. Jake pointed into the hole. "We think we found a structure, maybe a building or a ship. We need 2. Dig more to see what it is." Crixon moved to the edge and stared down with his huge eyes. After a moment, he stepped back and made a sound that Jake had learned meant surprise in his language. "This is very old," Crixon said in his slow, careful way of speaking. "Older than anything we have found before." The team worked for the rest of the day, carefully removing dirt and rock from around the mysterious object. As more of it became visible, Jake realized they had found something incredible. The surface was smooth and black like polished stone, but it was clearly metal. Strange symbols covered every inch of it, and they seemed to move and shift when he was not looking directly at them. By evening, they had uncovered enough to see that the object was enormous. It stretched far beyond their dig site in every direction. Lisa estimated it was at least as big as a city block, maybe bigger. "It's a ship," Jake said as they sat around their camp that night. "It has to be. Look at the shape, the way it curves. This is definitely a spacecraft." Veltar shook his head, all 4 of his arms moving in a gesture of doubt. "No ship in our records looks like this. The design is unknown to us. The materials are also strange. Our scanners cannot identify what it is made of." "How old do you
think it is?"
Lisa asked, taking a sip of coffee from her thermos. Crixon consulted his tablet, reviewing the data they had collected. "The soil layer suggests it has been buried for at least 50,000 years, perhaps much longer. This predates all known civilizations in this part of the galaxy." Jake stared at the exposed section of the ship, which they had covered with a protective tarp for the night. Something about it felt familiar, though he could not explain why. There was a pull, almost like the ship was calling to him. The next morning, Jake was the first one at the dig site. He pulled back the tarp and looked down at the smooth black surface. The symbols seemed brighter in the morning light, pulsing, with a faint blue glow that he had not noticed before. Without thinking, Jake climbed down into the hole and placed his hand on the surface of the ship. The moment his skin touched the metal, everything changed. Light exploded across the surface of the ship, running along the strange symbols like liquid fire. The blue glow became so bright that Jake had to close his eyes. A deep humming sound rose from beneath the ground, growing louder and more complex until it sounded almost like music. Jake tried to lift his hand, but he could not move. The ship held him somehow, not with force, but with something that felt like recognition. Images flashed through his mind, pictures of stars and planets, of great ships sailing through the darkness of space, of worlds he had never seen but somehow knew. "Jake." Lisa's voice cut through the strange music. Jake, what's happening? The light faded, and the humming stopped. Jake found himself on his knees beside the ship, his hand still pressed against its surface. Lisa was climbing down into the hole, her face full of worry. "I'm okay," Jake said, though he was not sure that was true. His head felt fuzzy, like he had just woken up from a very vivid dream. "Did you see the lights?" "The whole ship lit up like a Christmas tree," Lisa said, helping him to his feet. "What did you do?" "I just touched it," Jake replied. He looked at his hand, expecting to see some mark or change, but it looked normal. The ship's surface was dark again, though the symbols still pulsed with their faint blue light. Veltar and Crixon arrived running, their scanning equipment beeping and flashing. Both aliens stopped at the edge of the hole, staring down at Jake, and the ship with expressions of amazement and fear. "The energy readings were off our charts," Veltar said. "What did you activate, Dr. Morrison?" "I don't know," Jake answered honestly. "I just touched it, and it responded somehow." Crixon was studying his scanner, his large eyes growing even wider. "The ship is active now. All systems show power flowing through it. But how is this possible? It has been buried for thousands of years." Jake looked at the ship's surface again. As he watched, one section of the symbols began to glow brighter than the rest. They formed a pattern that looked almost like a doorway or entrance. "I think it wants us to go inside," Jake said. "Absolutely not," Veltar said quickly. "You must contact the Galactic Archaeological Council first. This discovery is too important to risk. We need experts, proper equipment, safety protocols." But Jake was not listening. The pull he had felt before was stronger now, like a voice calling his name. He knew, somehow, that the ship was safe. It would not hurt him. It wanted him to understand. Something important. "Jake, don't," Lisa warned. But she could see the determination in his eyes. Jake placed both hands on the glowing symbols. This time the response was immediate and gentle. A section of the ship's surface simply dissolved, revealing an opening just large enough for a person to step through.
"Oh, soft.
"Beyond, it's beautiful," he whispered, then looked back at his team. "I have to go in. I think this ship has been waiting for someone like me, someone human, for a very long time." Before anyone could stop him, Jake stepped through the opening and into the ancient ship. The moment he crossed the threshold, he knew his life would never be the same again. Jake stepped into the ship and felt his breath catch in his throat. The corridor stretched ahead of him, but it was wrong somehow. From the outside, the ship had looked big, but this hallway went on much farther than should have been possible. The walls curved gently, and they glowed with the same soft blue light he had seen from the symbols outside. His footsteps made no sound on the smooth floor. Everything was perfectly clean, as if the ship had been built yesterday instead of being buried for thousands of years. The air smelled fresh and somehow familiar, like the woods near his childhood home. "Jake, can you hear me?" Lisa's voice came from behind him, muffled by the ship's walls. "I'm fine," he called back. "It's safe in here. The corridor is much longer than it should be." Jake walked forward slowly, running his hand along the wall. The surface was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse gently under his fingers. Moved deeper into the ship, lights appeared ahead of him, showing the way. After what felt like several minutes of walking, the corridor opened into a vast room. Jake stopped and stared in amazement. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it, and the room was filled with strange devices and control panels that hummed quietly with power. In the center of the room stood a raised platform with what looked like a chair, but it was unlike any chair Jake had ever seen. It seemed to be made of the same material as the ship's walls, and it glowed with a gentle light that was almost welcoming.
"Welcome."
"Child of Earth." Jake spun around, looking for the source of the voice. It had spoken in perfect English, with an accent that sounded like his own. "Who's there?" he called out. "I am the consciousness of this vessel. I have been waiting for you for a very long time." Lights began to appear around the room, forming shapes in the air. Jake watched as the lights created images, like a holographic movie playing just for him. "You are human," the voice continued. "I can feel it in your touch, in your thoughts. You are one of the children who stayed behind. I don't understand, Jake said. Stayed behind from what? The lights formed new pictures, showing space filled with massive ships, bigger than anything Jake had ever imagined. The ships were leaving a blue and green planet that looked exactly like Earth. Long ago, your people spread across the stars. We built great cities on distant worlds. We shared our knowledge with the younger species we found. But then came the time of choosing. Jake watched as the images showed conflict, war between different species. Ships fighting in space, worlds burning, civilizations falling. The galaxy was not ready for what we offered. Some species wanted to take our technology by force. Others feared that we would control them. Your ancestors had to make a difficult choice. What choice? Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer. To return to Earth and wait. To let the galaxy grow and learn on its own, until the time was right for humans to return to the stars. The images changed, showing the great ships returning to Earth, landing in oceans, and being hidden away. Then Jake saw something that made his heart race. Some ships did not return to Earth. They were hidden on distant worlds, buried and set to sleep, waiting for the right moment to wake up. You are one of those ships, Jake said. I am the harbinger of the first dawn. I and my 11 sisters were left behind to wait for the children of Earth to find us again. When they did, we would know if they were ready to reclaim their place among the stars. Jake looked around the enormous room with new understanding. How long have you been waiting? 57,412 years by your current calendar. The number was so large that Jake could barely comprehend it. This ship had been waiting since before human civilization as he knew it had even begun. Are there people inside you? A crew? It's not in the way you might think, the original crew chose. To merge their consciousness with my systems before the long sleep began, they live on as part of me, sharing their knowledge and wisdom. They are why I can speak to you in your own language, why I understand your thoughts and feelings. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He was talking to thousands of ancient humans who had given up their physical forms to preserve their knowledge. Do you want from me? He asked. Nothing? Everything? The choice is yours to make.
No.
I can remain sleeping, and you can return to your life as if you never found me. Or I can awaken fully, and help your species take its place in the galaxy once more. Before Jake could answer, he heard voices from the corridor behind him. Lisa was calling his name, and he could hear Veltar and Crixon talking in worried tones. My friends are here, Jake said. Yes, the Zephyrian and the Andromedian. Their species are among those we helped long ago. They do not remember us, but their technology, their culture, much of it came from gifts we left behind. They don't know? The knowledge was lost over time. Your alien friends believe their people developed everything on their own. It may be difficult for them to learn the truth. Lisa appeared at the entrance to the great room, her eyes wide with amazement. She stepped inside slowly, looking around at the incredible technology surrounding them. Jake, this place is huge. How is it so big? From outside, the ship looked large, but not this large. The ship can bend space itself, Jake explained, though he was not sure how he knew that. Somehow, being inside the ship was filling his mind with knowledge he had never learned. Veltar and Crixon entered behind Lisa, and both aliens stopped suddenly. Tar's blue skin grew pale, and Crixon made a sound of fear. Something is wrong, Veltar said. I feel ... strange. Like this place knows me, but I do not know it. The ship recognizes your species, Jake said. It helped your people long ago. Caught all possible, Crixon said, but his voice shook. Our records go back 20,000 years. There is no mention of humans in our early history. The ship's consciousness spoke again, but this time Jake realized that only he could hear it. The others showed no sign of hearing the voice. They cannot understand me as you do. Only humans can hear my voice directly, but I can show them the truth if you wish. Jake looked at his friends, seeing the confusion and fear in their faces. They deserved to know the truth, but he was not sure. They were ready for it. Show them, he decided. The lights in the room changed, becoming brighter and more complex. New images formed in the air, But these were not just pictures. They were memories, real experiences from thousands of years ago. Lisa gasped as she saw humans working alongside early Zephyrians, teaching them how to build their first spacecraft. Veltar watched in shock as the images showed, his ancestors learning agriculture and medicine from human teachers. Crixon saw his people's first cities being planned with human help, their early art and music influenced by human culture. "Is not possible," Veltar whispered. "Our histories say nothing of this. Time erases many things," Jake said gently. "The ship says humans chose to step back and let your people grow on their own. They did not want to be remembered as rulers or gods." "But why?" Lisa asked. "If humans were so advanced, why give it all up?" Jake looked around the incredible room, feeling the weight of 50,000 years of waiting. Because they knew that real strength comes from helping others become strong, not from staying in control forever. The ship's voice spoke in his mind again. "The galaxy is different now. The species have grown wise enough to work together instead of fighting for dominance. The time of return may be at hand. But the choice is still yours to make, Jake Morrison? What will you decide?" 3 days had passed since Jake first entered the ancient ship, and everything had changed. The ship had grown larger each day, new rooms and corridors appearing as if by magic. Jake now understood that the ship was rebuilding itself, awakening. From its long sleep, piece by piece. Colonel Beth Andrews arrived that morning with a team of military specialists. She was a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had seen combat on 6 different worlds. Behind her came Dr. Ryan Hughes, a thin man with kind eyes who studied alien life forms, and Karen Bell, a computer expert who could make any machine work. "Dr. Morrison," Colonel Andrews said as she stepped out of her transport. "I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here. My superiors are very concerned about this discovery." Jake led the new arrivals to the dig site, where the ship's hull now rose several feet above the ground. The black surface gleamed in the sunlight, and the blue symbols pulsed steadily like a heartbeat. "It's been growing," Lisa explained to the newcomers. "Every day, more of it appears. And it only responds to humans. When Veltar or Crixon try to touch it, nothing happens." Dr. Hughes approached the ship carefully, his scanner in hand. "The energy readings are incredible. This thing is putting out more power than a small city uses." Karen Bell set up her equipment and began running tests. "The technology is completely unknown. My computers can't even figure out what it's made of." Jake placed his hand on the ship's surface, and the familiar opening appeared. "Come on, I'll show you the inside." As they walked through the corridor, Colonel Andrews kept looking around with amazement. "This is impossible. The space inside is much bigger than the ship appeared from outside." "The ship can bend space," Jake explained. "Don't understand yet." They entered the main control room, which had grown even larger since Jake's first visit. New control panels lined the walls, and strange devices hummed quietly in the corners. The chair in the center of the room now looked more like a throne. "Welcome, children of Earth," the ship's consciousness said, and this time everyone could hear it. Colonel Andrews reached for her weapon, but Jake quickly held up his hand. "It's friendly. It's been waiting for us." "I am the harbinger of the first dawn," the voice continued. "I have been hoping for this day for many thousands of years." Dr. Hughes pulled out his recorder. "This is incredible. Are you artificial intelligence?" "I am the combined consciousness of the humans who built me. They chose to merge their minds with my systems to preserve their knowledge and wait for your return." Karen Bell was studying her instruments with excitement. "No. The computing power required for this kind of consciousness would be beyond anything we have now." "Your people were once much more advanced than you are today," the ship explained. "But they chose to step back and let the galaxy develop naturally." Colonel Andrews was all business. "What do you want from us? What's your purpose?" "To offer you a choice. Humanity can remain as it is, a young species learning to explore the stars. Or you can reclaim your birthright and take your place as the galaxy's guides once more." "What does that mean exactly?" Dr. Hughes asked. The ship's lights dimmed and new images appeared in the air. They showed star maps with hundreds of worlds, marked in blue. These are worlds where humans once lived.
Ow.
Many are empty now, waiting for your return. Others have been settled by different species, but they contain hidden facilities that will respond to human touch just as I do. Jake studied the star map. How many ships like you are there? 11 others sleep in different parts of the galaxy. When you make your choice, they will either remain sleeping or awaken to help your people reclaim what was once theirs. Colonel Andrews frowned. And what about the species that live on those worlds now? What happens to them? That depends on the wisdom of your people, the ship replied. Your ancestors withdrew because they saw that conquest and control led only to war and suffering. They hoped that when humans returned to the stars, they would have learned better. Ways, Lisa was examining one of the control panels. What can you teach us? What technology can you share? Everything, the ship said simply. Medicine that can cure any disease. Energy sources that will never run out. Ships that can travel between stars and days instead of years. The knowledge your ancestors accumulated over thousands of years of exploration. Double quotes, Dr. Hughes looked up from his recorder. This could change everything. End poverty, disease, even death itself. It could, the ship agreed. But such power comes with great responsibility. Your ancestors learned that lesson the hard way. Suddenly, Karen Bell's communication device began beeping urgently. She answered it and listened for a moment, her face growing pale. Colonel Andrews, she said, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting ships approaching this system, lots of them. Colonel Andrews activated her own communicator. This is Andrews' report. Colonel, we have 17 ships inbound from different directions. Zephyrian, Andromedian, Centaurian, and at least 3 other species. They'll be here within 2 days. They're coming as stomach drop. They're coming for the ship, the Discovery. Could not remain secret for long, Veltar said as he and Crixon entered the control room. Word has spread through the Galactic Archaeological Council. Every major species wants to study this vessel. Study it or take it, Colonel Andrews said. Grimly, the ship's consciousness spoke again, and Jake could hear sadness in its voice. This is what your ancestors feared. The moment such power is revealed, those who lack wisdom will try to claim it for themselves. What do we do? Lisa asked. Right. We have to make a choice, Jake said. The ship is offering us everything our species has ever dreamed of. But if we take it, we'll have to fight for it. Dr. Hughes was pacing back and forth. Maybe we can share the technology. Work with the other species to benefit everyone. Some species will never accept that, Crixon said. Quietly. The Zephyrian Empire believes they are the rightful rulers of this part of the galaxy. They will not let humans suddenly become more powerful than them. And the Andromedian Federation has been expanding for centuries, Veltar added. They see every new discovery as either a threat to eliminate or a resource to control. Jake walked over to the throne-like chair in the center of the room. As he approached it, the ship's lights grew brighter. This chair, he said, is for commanding. The ship, isn't it? Yes, the ship replied. When you sit there, you will be connected to all my systems. You will be able to control my defenses, my weapons, my ability to create and build. But once you sit there, Jake Morrison, there will be no going back. You will be choosing not just for yourself, but for all of humanity. Colonel Andrews stepped. Forward, Jake. Don't do anything hasty. We need to think about this. There may not be time to think, Jake said. Those ships will be here soon, and they won't be coming to talk. Karen Bell was monitoring the ship's systems on her equipment. The ship's defenses are already activating. I'm reading energy weapons, shield generators, and some kind of construction system. I can protect this world, the ship said. But I cannot do it without a human commander. I need someone to make the hard choices, to decide who lives and who dies. I will not make those decisions on my own. Dr. Hughes looked at the star map still glowing in the air. All those worlds, all that knowledge. Wait. We could solve every problem humanity has ever faced. Or we could become the problem, Lisa said quietly. Like the ship said, power without wisdom is dangerous. Jake stood in front of the command chair, feeling the weight of the decision. He could feel the ship waiting, patient but ready. In 2 days, alien fleets would arrive, and they would either negotiate or fight for control of the most powerful technology in the galaxy. What would your ancestors do? He asked the ship. They would choose the path that leads to the greatest good for the greatest number. But they would also choose the path that preserves hope for the future. Jake Morrison, the decision is yours alone to make. Jake looked at his friends, at the alien colleagues who had become like family, at the human soldiers who had come to protect them. All of their lives would be changed by what he decided in the next few minutes. He took a deep breath and reached for the chair. Jake's hand stopped just inches from the command chair. The ship's lights pulsed around him, waiting for his decision. He could feel the power contained within the ancient vessel, the knowledge of thousands of years just waiting to be unleashed. He said, pulling his hand back. I need to understand something first. You said there are 11 other ships like you. Where are they? The star map in the air changed, showing the locations of the sleeping ships. They were scattered across the galaxy, hidden on remote worlds, and buried deep in asteroid fields. I take command of you. What happens to them? Jake asked. They will awaken and await their own human commanders. Your choice will signal to them that the time of return has begun. Colonel Andrews stepped closer to Jake. That's a lot of responsibility for one person to carry. It is, the ship agreed. But that is the burden of leadership. Your ancestors understood this when they chose to withdraw from the galaxy. They knew that power without wisdom destroys everything it touches. Suddenly, Karen Bell's equipment began screaming warnings. Colonel, the alien fleets have arrived early. They're dropping out of hyperspace now. Through the ship's walls, they could hear the sound of engines as spacecraft landed around the dig site. Colonel Andrews activated her communicator immediately. All units, defensive positions, do not fire unless fired upon. The ship's consciousness spoke urgently. The Zephyrian fleet is led by Admiral Vexera. She is known for taking what she wants by force. The Andromedian ships are commanded by General Vortex, who believes that humans are too young a species to possess advanced technology. Jake moved away from the command chair. Can you show me what's happening outside? The air in the room shimmered, and suddenly they could see through the ship's hull as if the walls were made of glass. Outside, dozens of alien ships had landed. Zephyrian soldiers in blue armor were setting up weapons, while gray-skinned Andromedians deployed shield generators. They're surrounding us, Lisa said with fear in her voice. Dr. Hughes was watching the alien forces with fascination, despite the danger. Look at how they're positioning themselves. Not just here to study the ship, they're here to take it. A new voice crackled through Colonel Andrews' communicator, and it was Admiral Vexar herself speaking in accented English. Humans of Earth, you have discovered something that belongs to the galaxy, not to your primitive species. Surrender the vessel, and we will allow you to leave unharmed. Colonel Andrews picked up her communicator. Admiral Vexera, this ship was found on a planet claimed by no government. Under galactic law, we have the right to study it. Galactic law does not apply when the safety of the galaxy is at stake, came the reply. Your species is too young and too aggressive to be trusted with such power. Stand down immediately. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. These aliens were treating humans like children, assuming they could not handle responsibility. But then he remembered the ship's words about wisdom and power. What would happen if I sit in that chair? He asked the ship quietly. You would have the power to destroy every ship outside this vessel. You could make the aliens leave and never return. But you would also be starting a war that could consume the galaxy. And if I don't, they will try to take me by force. They will fail because my defenses will activate automatically to protect this site. But many will die, and the survivors will bring larger fleets to destroy this world entirely. Jake looked around at his friends and colleagues. Lisa was watching, him with trust in her eyes. Colonel Andrews was ready to fight to protect them. Dr. Hughes and Karen Bell were still recording everything, believing that knowledge should be preserved no matter what happened, even Veltar and Crixon, despite being members of the species now threatening them, stood with the humans. They had become friends during the long weeks of excavation, and friendship mattered more than politics. There has to be another way, Jake said. The ship was quiet for a moment, then spoke slowly. There is one possibility, but it would require great trust and great risk. Tell me, instead of claiming my power for humanity alone, you could offer to share it. Not with governments or military leaders, but with individuals from each species who have proven themselves worthy. Scientists, explorers, those who seek knowledge for the good of all. Dr. Hughes looked up from his equipment. A council of representatives. From different species working together? It has never been tried before, the ship said. Your ancestors withdrew because they could not find a way to share power without creating conflict. But perhaps your generation is wiser. Beside the alien forces were growing impatient. More ships were landing, and Jake could see larger weapons being assembled. We're running out of time, Colonel Andrews said. Jake made his decision. He walked to the command chair, but instead of sitting down, he placed both hands on its arms. Choose to share, he said firmly. The ship's lights exploded in brilliant colors, and Jake felt knowledge flowing into his mind. He understood the ship's systems, its capabilities, its long history. But he also felt something else, the wisdom of the thousands of humans who had merged with the ship. Jake, Lisa called out as energy swirled around him. I'm all right, he said, though his voice sounded different now, older somehow. I can feel them. All the people who built this ship are helping me understand. The ship's external defense is activated, creating a shimmering barrier around the dig site. The alien weapons could not penetrate it. But the barrier also prevented anyone from leaving. Jake's voice echoed through every communicator in the area, speaking to all the alien forces at once. Admiral Vexera, General Vortex, commanders of all the fleets gathered here. I am Jake Morrison, and I speak for this vessel. You came here expecting to take this ship by force, believing that humans are too primitive to possess its power. You are correct, Admiral Vexera's voice replied coldly. Your species has barely left its home world. You cannot be trusted. With technology that could reshape the galaxy, then let us prove you wrong, Jake said. I offer you a challenge. Send your best scientists, your wisest leaders, your most trustworthy representatives. Let them join with our team to study this ship together. Those who prove themselves worthy, regardless of species, will share in its knowledge. There was silence. From the alien forces, then General Vortex spoke. This is a trick. You seek to delay us while you unlock the ship's secrets for yourselves. No trick, Jake replied. The ship will judge each person who enters it. It will know their true intentions, their wisdom, their character. Those it deems worthy will receive its gifts. Those who seek only power for themselves will be turned away. Jake looked at his friends in the control room. That includes humans. The ship will judge us just as harshly as it judges anyone else. The ship's consciousness spoke, and this time its voice was broadcast to all the alien forces outside. I am the harbinger of the first dawn for 50,000 years. I have waited for the galaxy to grow wise enough for this moment. Jake Morrison has chosen the path of sharing over the path of conquest. Who among you is brave enough to be judged by ancient wisdom? The alien forces outside began talking among themselves. Jake could see through the ship's sensors that some were arguing. Others were consulting with their home governments, and a few were actually considering the offer. You have 1 hour to decide, Jake announced. Send your representatives, or leave this system. But know that if you choose to attack, you will face the full power of humanity's ancient legacy. The waiting began, and Jake realized that the real test was just beginning. The hour passed slowly. Jake remained connected to the command chair, feeling the ship's consciousness merged with his own thoughts. He could sense the alien forces outside, their fear and confusion mixing with curiosity and hope. 3 representatives are approaching the barrier, Colonel Andrews reported. Watching her sensors, Jake could see them through the ship's awareness. Dr. Zeron, an elderly Zephyrian scientist whose 4 arms carried research equipment instead of weapons. Commander Brickle, an Andromedian engineer who had spent his life building instead of destroying. And most surprising of all, Captain Lunari from the Centaurian fleet, a species known for their wisdom and peaceful nature. Lower the barrier for them, Jake said. And the shimmering energy wall opened to allow the 3 aliens to enter. The representatives walked slowly toward the ship. their eyes wide with wonder. As they approached the entrance, the familiar opening appeared in the hull. "Welcome," Jake's voice echoed from within. "Enter, and let the ship judge your hearts." Dr. Zarin was the first to step inside, followed by Commander Brickle and Captain Lunari. When they entered the control room, they stopped in amazement at the incredible technology surrounding them. "This is beyond anything in our records," Dr. Zarin whispered, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "The energy readings are impossible," Commander Brickle added, studying his instruments. "How does it generate so much power?" Captain Lunari approached Jake slowly. "You are connected to the ship now. I can see it in your eyes." "How does it feel?" "Carrying the memories of thousands of people," Jake replied honestly.
Out there.
"All here, everyone who built this ship, everyone who chose to wait for this moment. They're helping me understand what needs to be done." The ship's consciousness spoke, addressing the three alien representatives directly. "Step forward, each of you. Place your hands upon the wall, and let me see who you truly are." Dr. Zarin went first. She pressed her four hands against the glowing wall, and lights began to dance around her. Jake could feel the ship reading her mind, seeing her decades of peaceful research, her desire to use knowledge to help all species. "Dr. Zaron, of the Zephyrian people," the ship announced. "You seek knowledge not for power, but for understanding. You are worthy." A new control panel appeared near the Zephyrian. Scientists configured perfectly for her four-armed physiology. As she touched it, her eyes glowed with sudden understanding. "I can see it," she breathed. "The medical knowledge, the techniques to cure diseases that have plagued our people for generations." Commander Brickle approached the wall next. Ship's lights surrounded him as it examined his thoughts and memories. "Commander Brickle of the Andromedian Federation," the ship said. "You build to create, not to destroy. You dream of cities that reach the stars and ships that can carry your people to safety. You are worthy." Another control panel materialized, and when Brickle touched it, his gray skin seemed to brighten with excitement. "Energy sources that never run out," he said in wonder. "Construction techniques that could rebuild entire worlds." Captain Lunari was the last to approach. The ship's examination of her took longer, and Jake could feel its surprise at what it found. "Captain Lunari of the Centaurian Unity," the ship finally said. "You carry the memories of many lives, the wisdom of your people's long history. More than that, you understand the burden of choice. You are more than worthy. You are a natural leader." A third control panel appeared, more complex than the others. When Lunari touched it, Jake felt a connection form between her and the ship that was almost as strong as his own. "I can feel them," she said softly. "The ancient humans who built this ship, they chose to step back not from weakness, but from strength. They knew that true power comes from lifting others up." Outside, the alien fleets were growing restless. Admiral Vexera's voice crackled over the communicators. "Enough of this. Dr. Zarin, report your status immediately."
Dr. Zarin.
Looked at Jake, then activated her communicator. "Admiral, I have been given access to medical technology beyond our wildest dreams. It's technology that could save millions of lives. Is it safe?" Admiral Vexera demanded. "Safer than anything we have," Dr. Zarin replied. "The ship does not give power to those who would misuse it. I have been judged and found worthy." Commander Brickle was speaking to his own fleet. "General Vortex, the construction techniques I am learning could solve our housing crisis. Entire planets could be made livable in years instead of centuries." It was Captain Lunari who spoke the words that changed everything. "All fleets, this is Captain Lunari. I am transmitting coordinates to 11 other locations in the galaxy. At each location, there is another ship like this one. They are awakening now, ready to share their knowledge with any who prove themselves worthy." Jake felt the other ships stirring across the galaxy, responding to his choice. They were waking up after 50,000 years of sleep, ready to offer their gifts to a galaxy that had finally grown wise enough to receive them. 11 ships, Dr. Hughes said with amazement. 11 sources of this level of technology. "But only for those who pass the test," Jake added. "The ships will not give their knowledge to those who seek only power or conquest." The voice came over the communicator again. but this time it sounded different, less hostile. What kind of test? Each ship judges the heart and mind of those who approach it, Jake explained. It looks for wisdom, compassion, and the desire to help others. Species, rank, and military power mean nothing to these ancient guardians. Over the next several hours, more representatives came forward. Not all of them passed the ship's test. A Zephyrian general who dreamed of conquest was turned away. An Andromedian politician who wanted to use the technology for personal gain found the ship's entrance sealed to him. But many others were welcomed. A young Zephyrian teacher who wanted to eliminate hunger from her world was given agricultural technology that could feed billions. An Andromedian artist who dreamed of beautiful cities received architectural knowledge that could reshape worlds. As the day wore on, something unexpected began to happen. The representatives from different species started working together, sharing what they had learned, combining their new knowledge in ways that created even greater possibilities. This is what your ancestors hoped for, the ship told Jake. Not one species controlling the galaxy, but all species working together as equals. Jake felt a deep satisfaction as he watched former enemies becoming partners. Lisa was working with Dr. Zeron to develop new medical treatments. Colonel Andrews was consulting with Commander Brickle about defensive technologies that could protect worlds instead of conquering them. What happens now? Jake asked the ship. Now you choose again, the ship replied. You can remain connected to me as my permanent commander guiding the ship in its mission. Or you can step back and let the knowledge spread naturally, trusting others to use it wisely. Jake looked around the control room at all the species working together, sharing knowledge and building friendships. He thought about the burden of command, the weight of making decisions that affected the entire galaxy. I choose trust, he said, stepping away from the command chair. The ship's lights pulsed with approval. Then you have learned the greatest lesson of all. True leadership is knowing when to lead and when to step aside. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Unity. The ship's new name, chosen by its mixed crew of humans and aliens. They were traveling to the fifth of the ancient ships, helping another world learn to work together. The galaxy was changing. Diseases that had killed millions were being cured. Worlds that had been barren were becoming gardens. Species that had been enemies were becoming friends. And it had all started with one choice, made by a human who chose to share instead of conquer, to trust instead of control. Jake smiled as he watched the stars. Humanity had finally taken its place among them, not as rulers, but as the species that taught others how to reach for the sky together.